Ready?
I saw Ms. Borden. I think she was signed in. I see her. There she is. Okay, good. Okay, great. We'll let Councilmember Del Chapo finish her soup. We'll get going. Robbie, if you're there, I got that note you sent me about that parking space. Is it good to citizen right there? There she is. Okay, y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
Great. I'd like to call to order the January 12th, 2021 meeting of the City of Charleston Traffic and Transportation Committee and ask that we begin with a moment of silence, please. Amen, and thank you very much. I see that our minutes from our last meeting are deferred. So the first item of business for today is the golf cart discussion. And I see Ms. Borden's name next to that on our agenda. Ms. Borden, are you there?
I'm going to start and then
Okay.
show
Mr. Benjamin.
blanks. Good to see all of you all.
Good to see you too. Happy New Year. You're looking very clean cut in the new year.
I told the mayor I'm trying to get my waves back, but the golf cart memo, if you remember, started as an inquiry from Councilmember Lewis and wanting to see better ways to regulate some of the golf carts, especially in our downtown area, area, and otherwise. And so initially we had sent out a memo that described some of the ways in which some of our neighboring communities handled those regulations and otherwise, and where there might be improvements. Upon some help, specifically from Janie, in terms of the state code and also DMV practices, there appears to be a way in which we could help and kind of curtail some of the unregistered golf carts that are sometimes in the public right of way and or parking in spaces that are paid for, untimed, or not following rules from there. And so there appears to be a way to, within the existing state code and with existing DMV regulations, for us to proceed. So we just wanted to inform you of that and what that exactly looks like. I don't think that that necessarily requires any type of vote as much as it's just a change in our procedure, and also some of our parking enforcement officers with some additional rights that they will need from you all in a preceding council meeting. But Robbie, can you just outline that process, and we could take any questions or issues y'all might have.
Yes, per state law, golf carts are required to be registered through the DMV. It's after looking into the DMV, it's not a very difficult process. It's really just a form that they have to fill out, indicating the ownership, as well as that the golf cart has insurance. And once they complete that, they do get a sticker, a decal, that is required to be placed on the golf cart, which helps us to identify, kind of like a license plate, who the golf cart belongs to. Now, the problem that we're running into as far as enforcement is that we're finding golf carts that are parking illegally, parking in prohibited zones, or even in meters that are not registered, that we cannot find any identification like a VIN number. So we have, enforcement problems. Now, I will say last year, 2020, we did write 173 parking citations on golf carts, but a lot of them, we just had to walk away because they're not registered. After working with Janie and working with legal, since they're required to have it per state law, we were looking at to enforce the state law of unregistered golf carts was to put a boot on. We would boot the vehicle, and once the owner of the vehicle come to claim the vehicle, of course, they would have to pay the $50 boot fee, and then we could actually issue them a municipal summons for having an unregistered golf cart, and we can get them into court that way. So based on what the state law says, the requirements, we think we can proceed by, enforcing unregistered golf carts on the right of way.
And the only other piece I'll just add in there, thank you, Robbie, is that the specific question that was asked of us was about what may need to be changed within our city ordinances. And I guess what we wanted to emphasize is that there's an enforceability opportunity here without us having to do any city ordinance changes, just leaning into the state law. So wanted to present that information to you all about the fact that that ability is on the table. There is an outstanding piece, Robbie, if I'm not mistaken, regarding parking enforcement officers who would have to be given the abilities to give out those summons. That probably would be with some of our supervisors, but that's the baseline of the recommendation from that conversation. We kind of wanted to close up the research piece of what was asked of us with golf carts. Happy to take any questions or concerns that you all have about our findings and how we potentially can proceed.
Mayor Tecklenburg?
So, Mr. Chairman, you know, we had discussed this and there had been other towns that developed pretty intricate registration protocols of their own. And this is kind of hackneyed expression, but the thought here is let's just try to enforce what's already on the books, which is the state registration law, see how that goes before we decide to draw up our own ordinance that would duplicate what the state already has in place. I would add that I'd like to, if we're moving along this course, make sure that Charleston Police and livability officers, you know, have this ability also, so that if some, not just a parked golf cart, but one that's riding around and it's, you know, apparent they're being negligent or need to be stopped for any reason, that the officer, you know, also can give them a summons at that point for not having their registration.
I think all very good and valid points. Councilmember Del Chapo, any questions or comments on this?
So really the only enforceability we have is as far as the registration. And I think like if they don't have a valid driver's license, there's nothing as far as the safety of it, like how you're operating, or does that follow the same as vehicles?
It really follows the same as vehicles.
Okay.
You're required to have an active driver's license, a valid driver's license to operate a golf cart. I think you got to be over the age of 16.
Right.
A golf cart cannot be operated at night. So there are certain rules and regulations that, again, the police department could enforce.
Well, I guess the reason I ask that is because what always amazes me is the parent with the infant in a baby Bjorn on their chest, that they would never drive around in their big Suburban like that, but they drive around in their golf cart. So some of these things that it, you know, I guess that maybe goes up, you know, I just am kind of stumped that those aren't included in these regulations. And I'm hard pressed to find a golf cart ever being cited. They could very well be, and I'm just not seeing it. I don't think.
Yeah, and I think when
very much enforcement around it, and I see a lot of poor behavior on a golf cart.
When the initiative,
I just wonder if is there not enough? Is it kind of like distracted driving? Is there not enough meat on the bone to make it worthwhile to enforce? You know, there's a lot of complications in trying to enforce it, kind of like distracted driving, or what's the holdup?
we can explore all those pieces with police and livability. I think when the initiative came to this committee, well, actually it was stated at full council and then came to this committee, it was specific around the enforceability with parking and with the golf cart usage, and otherwise there were some other additional pieces regarding safety that did come up, and there are some other local municipalities that have raised some pieces there that we definitely can explore. I think internally we saw an immediate opportunity on enforcement from a parking standing situation with the golf carts, and the fact that what completely disables us from even being able to get in touch with the owner of that vehicle is the lack of registration. And so how do we hold accountability there for no matter what particular infraction is, but at a minimum for the enforceability when it comes to parking. And so I know we definitely want to move forward on that piece, and definitely can explore all different other areas too for how those vehicles should and should not be used.
So if I might, a couple things, if you don't mind. Mr. Somerville will, I think, concur with this. We've been talking about this for a long time. And I think that having some access to the unregistered golf carts is a really good idea. We should do it. And I think, Robbie, I mean, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, we were looking at the availability of mini golf cart boots and all that. Have we figured that out? Can we get all that kind of stuff?
Can't get the product.
Right. That's what I thought. So I think we kind of have a bifurcated track. Do we, for those who are responsible and come in and register their golf carts, do we at the time of registration have a placard or something that gives them sort of a summary of the rules of the road? Because I still think there is a real divergence between what people think they can do with their golf cart and when they can do it and what they actually do. The one of which I see all the time, particularly at this time of year, is driving golf carts around at night. They're all over the road at night, especially when it gets dark at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So do we have a placard or do we have something we give to the registered golf cart owners so they are all on the same page with us and the law?
Well, the DMV issues of course, registration, but on that form, it does indicate that you have to have a valid driver's license. It does indicate you got to have insurance. It does indicate that it gives basic information. I know Councilwoman Chapo was referencing distracted driving. I do not think they require like seat belts. And I think that's where the mayor was getting more into, maybe that we could possibly look into a more firmed up ordinance that would address all that. But I think the application is just, standard that you can't operate at night. That you have to have a valid driver's license and the vehicle has to be insured.
And I definitely agree with Councilmember Del Chapo that we probably need to beef it up, but I'm just thinking about the basic information that we already have in place to make sure that there is a step in the process where people who go to register actually see and understand and acknowledge what those rules of the road are. So we're all on the same page. And like I said, I mean, I don't know how it is on Daniel Island, but downtown, I think Daniel Island and downtown are the two places where the most golf carts. There is zero compliance with some of just the very basic rules that we already have in place. So before we get to the next level and start looking at the people driving with their kids, my favorite is when the kids are actually sitting in the back and they've got the dog in their lap and there's 2 little kids in the back untethered. I mean, it's crazy, some of the things you see. So first and foremost, those who register, let's make sure they understand so we can enforce. And I think it's great that we can get after the unregistered golf carts. We got to be able to boot them because they're all over the place too.
What we can do, if you don't mind, Chair, is if you remember, we have a traffic work group committee with CPD and our department that also Business Neighborhood Services attends. And so let us bring this up at a topic at that grouping, figure out how we coordinate together. So like, for example, on Daniel Island, we heavily depend on CPD's presence there. And so that would have to be partnership there. BNS, the type of cards that they give out for the street sweeping to neighbors, they kind of let them know, here's what's happening. Otherwise, maybe there's something of that form. So let us bring that up at that work group meeting. And Robbie, if you can mark that down as an agenda topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you go up King Street on any given night, and I mean night when it's dark, you'll see a number of golf carts parked in funny places. They're going to get back in and go home. I mean, just a placard we can put on them and say, excuse me, you can't drive this thing after night. That's really at night. It's a bad idea and it's against the law. I think just getting the information out there would be helpful, very helpful. So I guess we just need to give you our blessing and say, please go forward, prosper, come back and get us some more so we can enact whatever we need to be able to go after those unregistered golf carts. Is that what you're asking? Okay. Mayor, Councilmember Del Chapo, now I see Councilmember Brady has tuned in. Welcome and Happy New Year. Thank you for being here. We're on the subject of golf carts, near and dear to all of our hearts. And we got a report from Mr. Somerville, Mr. Benjamin about sort of where we're heading with all this. And that focus right now is unregistered golf carts and then complying with existing rules of the road. Councilmember Del Chapo and the mayor, I think, also would like to see some further clarification of the rules and some enforcement. So first step is to get everyone on the same page. So with that, Councilmember Brady, any questions or comments on this topic before we move on to the next?
Nope, that all sounds good. And I think on the golf carts operating at night, especially, that's even in the neighborhood, like my neighborhood, it's an issue. You have people with golf carts, a lot of them aren't registered, and they go out for these like night cruises and are really tough to spot.
Yeah, and it's an increasing issue, and if we're going to allow them on the streets, let's make sure they follow the rules. Okay, Janie, I see you're there. Is there anything from our legal staff we need to know, or we'll just let you all go do your thing? What I would ask is, Mr. Bensman, that you get back to us sooner rather than later on this. Let's get this through and over with and in place soon. Okay.
Well, if it's okay with y'all, we'll go ahead and move forward on the booting aspect and all those pieces with the registration piece, but the additional aspects, we'll get to that.
Okay. That's fine with me. If anybody else, okay. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Morrison Drive Sidewalk Project. That's something new. Mr. Davis, I saw him tune in and flash in. There he is. All right, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Keith, do you want to kick us off?
Yes. Many times there's transportation projects that are moving forward that are a combination of a lot of collaboration amongst city staff. And when it happens, and it's really good stuff, we want to make sure that you all are informed and know what's going on. One of the asks that you have of our department in coordination with others is that we focus on implementation. And this is one of those things that is moving forward with implementation, thanks to what has been this Cooper River Bridge TIF group that has continued to meet post some Bloomberg work almost two and a half years ago for it. And this is one of the projects that was outlined from the CD committee to move forward on. A lot of partnership here, and I wanted Alan to kind of give you a briefing on it. Make sure you knew what was going on. There are some follow-up council requests and procedures that will be following this. But what we wanted to do today was at least present the project to you so you can know what's going on, know that things are moving on the transportation side when it comes to that eastern corridor of Cooper area. So I'll let Alan kind of give the presentation there and then take any questions that you all have.
Great.
Great.
Hi,
Thank
Alan.
you very much, Keith. I'll say, it's not often that we get to really focus in on a project that is funding and this close to implementation. A lot of times we're drawing stuff up and it doesn't get that close. So this is a really good moment. The mayor asked us to take a look at this project a while back, and there was a TIF allocation, as Keith mentioned. And so this is really just connecting dots. It's an attempt to use the already mobilized private sector to deliver much needed public infrastructure. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. As many of you know this geography already, anybody who's driven down Morrison Drive south of UG Street has seen this. Anyone who's walked down Morrison Drive in this location has certainly seen this. This is actually a drier condition. A lot of times what you see instead of this is, or in addition to this, is a lot of ponding that occurs in this kind of washed out area. A lot of that ponding occurs above the curb line, so it's not associated with the drainage of the street itself. It's associated with the drainage of adjacent properties and the, again, above the curb line portion of the right of way. So obviously this is an area in need of a sidewalk, but we also look for opportunities where basic infrastructure like sidewalks can alleviate other priorities for the city, such as access to affordable housing and also alleviating flooding. Just for reference, this it is not exactly in the Cooper River Bridge TIF district, but it does connect two parts of the TIF district. It's not a major issue. It's just, it's just to indicate that this project benefits the TIF district and is actually the funding from the TIF district is what's going to pay for this improvement. There's currently $150,000 already allocated in a 2017 TIF district bond. So this is money that's already in place and ready to be used for this infrastructure. And again, we'll connect this. This is the area over here. If you can see my cursor, number 10, it'll connect two sides of the Cooper River Bridge TIF district. So it's a good benefit to the area. Just for context, our partners on this project is Origin Development Partners. They're responsible for the development that's currently underway called Morrison Yards. This is a BAR submittal from theirs of 2019. It showed some of these desired offsite improvements. They did quite a bit of neighborhood engagement where they talked about all of these offsite improvements. They were not required to deliver this portion of sidewalk. It's part of the typical TRC process. So it sort of falls outside of scope of their exact project. But since their crews are already out there, they're doing the work. They're more than happy to help us get this project done, as opposed to any further delays that would be associated with it being a standalone project in our typical capital project system. So this is something that's ready to go right away because the private sector is already mobilized and ready to do this work for us. And the details of them doing that work is to be worked out in a memorandum of agreement. A little more details on the project. So all the way from UG Street down to Cooper Street is where there's going to be some sidewalk that's needed. Of course, there are some segments where the sidewalk is already constructed. Generally, the concept is to complete the sidewalk where it's not constructed, and then also to install ADA accessible curb ramps, and to, where we can, and if budget allows, to do some of the lateral crosswalks so that are currently not existent. And then even further, if money allows, is to further study a particular area near the Housing Authority property south of Sanders Clyde, which is another area that I'll talk a little bit more about. Just quick section here, just to help you understand what's happening. There's a lot of runoff from the adjacent property that's coming, that's like kind of sheet flowing, overland sheet flow away from the private property into the right of way. It's pooling above that curb line, and that water is not able to get over the curb line into the street drainage. Simply adding a sidewalk and filling this area would alleviate obviously the transportation need in the area, but also the overland sheet flow to allow water to escape into the Morrison Drive drainage system. We've received a cost estimate from the partners. We could do a 5-foot sidewalk or a 6-foot sidewalk. You can see the prices of those here. It's well within our budget. Other uses of this funding might also be contingency. Sometimes things cost a little bit more once you start to open them up. Making sure we've got all the curb ramps and bells and whistles that we actually need to make sure that this is ADA compliant and fully complete. And so there would be some wiggle room in terms of the allocation of the remainder of the $150,000. Again, all details that need to be worked out in the memorandum of agreement. One more kind of note that I would add is that there's plenty else to use this money for, especially when things start to become a little bit more complicated in this one particular area. And a lot of you already know this. It's the parking area that basically is fronting onto Morrison Drive. It's essentially just before you get to the old Grace and Pyramid Bridge area, the Cooper River Bridge redevelopment area, as we call it. A highly visible issue here. I mean, the parking lot itself floods, and that's independent of the flooding along Morrison Drive. And so there's a lot of issues out here. Certainly there's no sidewalk, but we would like, if there is any funding left over after the basic needs of the sidewalk are met for this project, we would like the landscape architects and the design team that's already mobilized for this project and part of that development team to take a closer look at this for us and see if they can offer any recommendations or landscape improvements that would improve the area beyond just the sidewalk. Again, if money allows. To wrap this up, the next step is to develop the memorandum of agreement with the private sector development partners, Origin partners. We'll be doing that over the coming weeks. We're going to bring this back to City Council in 26. I believe that would be be Ways and Means and also full council. And then after that, we build it, we evaluate it, and then we reimburse the partner for all of the funding, and really keeping an eye on where those dollars go and make sure we get the infrastructure that we're looking for. Pretty simple project. It's a win-win scenario, and we're ready to get it done. Thank you very much.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Davis on this, or any additional comments, Mr. Benjamin, before we hand it over to the mayor or council members?
No, sir.
Great. Mayor or council members, any questions about this project?
No question. I think it's a fine project to proceed with. We clearly need some sidewalks along there. If you run into a little shortfall, Alan, please let me know with that little area, you know, near the Charleston Housing Authority. I sure don't mind asking them to chip in a little bit. And that other feature right there on that bottom picture, I think is a pump station that belongs to Charleston Water Service. So again, if we were short a few bucks, I'm happy to ask them to chip in as well. So that area just looks, you know, we've done such a fine job improving St. Julian Divine right there. You can see in the background, you know, we ought to just go the extra mile and try to make this whole corridor look nicer than it is and more functional and handle the water better. It all makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments from members of the committee? Alan, thanks. I think this is a really cool project and it really is needed. This is kind of hard to believe, but actually I've got a group that we run up along that corridor a good bit in that very area where you showed that first picture. And it's a lot of times it's impassable because it's so muddy and everything. So I think we'll really make some improvements. I also note, Mayor and Councilmember Del Chapo in particular, one of the things that defines that corridor as you look at that lower picture is those smokestacks. So certainly part and parcel of the landscape of that area of the side of the city. So Alan, this will come back to Ways and Means just for approval of funding through the private developer. And then are you going to be, is it going to be your office that'll sort of manage it from the city side to keep an eye on it and keep an eye on costs and report back to the mayor where we are on any overruns or additional needs?
No, sir, I highly doubt it. That's typically not what we do. And I'll talk with the mayor to get specifics on that, but it'll most likely be managed through real estate or BFRC or legal or some other department.
I just
So
think it's big.
This project actually is listed on the city capital improvements plan.
Okay.
So most likely it might sit within the capital improvements team, capital projects team for execution. One other piece I'd be remiss not to say, in 2018, we had passed the citywide transportation plan. If you remember, one of the locations for improvements was at Morrison in the Lee Cooper corridor, and how we can make sure that corridor looks better for the future. And so this isn't all that could happen there, but it's a piece of it. So I'm glad that this is moving.
Great. Okay, well, we'll look forward back to a report at Ways and Means in the next meeting. I take it we don't really need to take any action on this. We just simply need to wait and hear when it comes back. Am I right about that?
As long as we're not missing anything. Matt's showed his face, so
yeah.
Mr. Froelich is here. How are you?
Councilmember Seekings, you should see two things coming at the January 26th meeting. One will be an MOA with the developer for the project itself. The other one is going to be a resolution for the findings of benefit to the TIF district, since the project is technically majority out of the TIF district, but is bookended by it.
Okay. So we can just report out that this came to our committee for report and recommendation, and there was, at least as far as I can see, no objection to this. We were encouraging it, right? Okay. Any other questions on this? If not, I guess we'll see this back in a few weeks in front of Ways and Means. When can this project get going, Alan?
Those details will also be worked out with the developer, but their crews are already mobilized. I mean, they're out there digging stuff up right now. So they've been eager to take this on for quite a while. And so we'll get back with them and let y'all know when it's ready to start breaking ground.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda is our director's update. Mr. Benjamin.
Hey, everybody. I know I sent you all a detailed update on a number of different things before the holidays, but the work continues coming into the new year. So I have a number of things for you all. Please feel free to stop me in the middle of this or however you feel if questions or issues come up that you want to dig into. First one on my list is with Brigade Street, that project. I have reported that out to you all. We presented it to you all as well. Initially, we were under the assumption that the project was going to begin at the latter point of last year, but we're told January 11th. And then as we came into the new year, that date was pushed back to January 25th. That being said, Banks, the contract, the SCDOT contractor, has begun their notifications, and we're coordinating with them on what street closures are going to look like, notifications to the neighborhood, and all those things. We've been sending monthly updates to the neighborhood presidents, council members of those districts and other advocates in the area, so they knew what was going on. As a reminder, this project is a partnership with SCDOT. It's us taking advantage of their resurfacing plan to introduce what will be the first protected bike infrastructure in the city. This comes out of our People Pedal Plan, citywide transportation plan as well, but it also improves safety at Meeting and Brigade Street, which is one of the most dangerous intersections in our city. At the time when we first started doing the planning pieces, I think it was between 2015 and 2018. I'll check my numbers, but it was somewhere between 23 and 28 accidents just as that intersection in that time frame. And so, improvements of the line of sight, introduction of rapid beacon flashers, protected bike infrastructure, concrete curb bulb outs at Meeting and Brigade, improvements at Morrison as well throughout, connections to the eventual low line. So we're excited about this project and grateful for the coordination with SCDOT. So more to come on that. We'll be finalizing the street blocking permit today with staff, and then kind of moving forward to make sure we're getting the word out in anticipation of January 25th. The other thing that I sent a message out to you all about was with the transportation sales tax with Charleston County, and the fact that we have been asked to submit our list of application projects for February 1st due date. We've worked with city staff and collected a list of projects all throughout the city, gotten city staff's involvement, presented some of those to the mayor as well. We'll also present those projects to the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee on the 21st, just to get their blessing as well. Just a couple of things that are different in this solicitation process that have changed between last year and coming to this year. One is the county is specific that accident data be included in our applications. And so we've been working with CPD on getting that together. That's a really big predicator for how they will and won't fund certain projects. The other piece that was a change from last year is that any right-of-way needs would be the responsibility of the requesting entity. And so previously, the project might have X amount of thousands of dollars or more in right-of-way cost and otherwise. Any of that would be on that requesting entity. And so we were careful about what project we were choosing, simply just off of that notion. And then the last piece is the requirement to have support letters for any of the projects that we submit. And so this is where our council members are going to come into play. You will be hearing from Michael Mathis on my team. We'll pre-draft for you, but you'll be hearing from us on projects that might be in your district and getting your cosign for sending in those applications and getting a letter of support from you to pair with that application before we submit. So post the Bike Pet meeting on the 21st, most likely you will hear from myself and or Michael Mathis on that to get your response so we can get those applications in. Next thing on my list is Project 700 Crosswalks. If you remember, this is an initiative that we actually started as a pilot with SCDOT District 6 on improving signalized intersections for pedestrian safety. We started out with 9 pilot projects, and since then in the Tri-County area, it's now up to 142 locations that have been treated in partnership with the district office. We're continuing to push that partnership and definitely welcome in not just you all's districts, but other council members' districts, areas that definitely need that help and assistance. And just for your knowledge, and these are primarily on the peninsula, there's some additional intersections we're planning to have done this year that are already in the works and waiting for SCDOT to fund and implement. Those being Rutledge at Cleveland, coming at Vanderhorst, coming at Radcliffe, coming at Morris, Courtney at Doughty, and Rutledge at Vanderhorst. So there'll be some type of pedestrian enhancement there, whether that's enhanced crosswalks, whether that's ADA accessibility, whether that's pedestrian signals, or et cetera. Really trying to just make sure we're pushing the issue of safety as much as possible. One other piece of safety, want to show you all, you probably have seen these in white, but we've improved them a little bit. These flood marker signs that are going to be at varying locations around the city, specifically one to be a notification to motorists as they're coming to varying intersections that through GIS and CPD may be open and closed depending on tide flows, but also making sure that we're enhancing our flood notification and warning systems that we've been coordinating with the resiliency team on. So just a little bit of partnership that's there. Another partnership that we are excited about is with DHEC and CARTA, and thank you to Councilman Seekers for giving the green light on this. But we were approached, the mayor was approached by Mayor Benjamin in Columbia, and then I was approached by Representative Marvin Pendarvis. DHEC has been really trying to prioritize reaching out to marginalized communities when it comes to COVID-19 testing and just innovative strategies around that. And one of the things that came up was maximizing the transit service systems for being able to reach those populations. And so they actually did a partnership in Columbia with Comet, and they've approached the city of Charleston regarding partnership with CARTA and specific stops. And so we're in the midst of talking with DHEC about the setting up of a kiosk at Mary Street bus stop location where both transit riders and anybody else will be able to come up for rapid testing and be able to know their status when it comes to COVID-19 at no cost to the city, no cost at all. So just excited about that partnership and moving that forward and giving as much accessibility as possible. One of the just one nerd transportation number, the vast majority of our transit riders don't have access to a car. And so the expectation that, you know, if they do have an issue with COVID or experiencing systems, that they could be able to access certain testing sites if you have to be in a car is not reasonable. So being able to close that gap between access and opportunity is important. So just grateful for DHEC and for CARTA for making that partnership move. Just a few other things. I know we got a lot going on, but I got to make sure y'all know what's going on. As you remember, thanks to Councilmember Brady and the Bike Ped Committee, there was a number of responses to COVID-19 that you all permitted us to do, including the closure of South Market Street at certain times to enhance social distancing, but also to be a support to the small businesses there and the brick and mortar businesses as well. I think we just lost. So, and we institutionalized that on August 15th. And one of the things that we were able to do was measure our pedestrian counts throughout that time. We used what's called an eagle counter. It's a pyro box that's been used by cities all over the country, but they use like infrared systems to be able to attract pedestrians and cyclists. And some amazing numbers I want to share with you. So just raw data. So between August 15th of 2020 and Christmas, from 9 to 5 daily, with the full street closure in place, the raw data showed that there was over 129,587 pedestrians and cyclists counted. Now, if we take the margin of error with infrared, there's about a 10 to 20% undercount. And so if we take those estimates, our actual numbers of counts during that time is somewhere between 142,000 and 155,000 counted of both cyclists and pedestrians in the corridor. So something that was definitely used, something that definitely was a support to small businesses and otherwise, and provided space for social distancing. And so I'm grateful that you all allowed us to be able to put that pilot forward. Would love to be able to see how those type of things can look in the city in the future in more permanent capacities, because it brings a certain amenity to our city in a number of different ways. So definitely wanted to put that forward to you all. Speaking of Bike Ped,
Keith, before you go forward on
Yes,
Market Street, what is the future of that? Are we going to continue to do this project? Are we going to continue to do this, or is it coming to an end?
I would love to keep doing it, keep introducing it to a number of different places. I know we had gotten some responses from Market Street vendors and brick and mortar businesses in the area of wanting to get back to their previous normal. And we had also spoken about the trial being between August and the end of last year, December 31st. And so that's what we stuck to in terms of the pilot. But like I said, we would be grateful to be able to see about what this looks like, not just in that corridor, but in other places in the future. I do know in the South Market Street area, as you all know, the streetscape project is going to be starting up in that area soon too. So that's another factor as well.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, if I may
Yes, sir.
interject with that question, and I must admit I hadn't thought about it, but later this year, hopefully, finally, we're going to start on streetscape improvements, a market area. Dominion is now finally working on their undergrounding plan, and I believe they may go first. So what I would recommend to us all, just off the top of my head, I must admit, is just to continue what we're doing with that closure until the streetscape program starts. And then, to be honest with you, it's just going to follow, closures are going to follow the streetscape project for probably a good 2-year period after it begins, you know.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know who's currently got the latest version of that streetscape plan, but if we could get our hands on it and take a look at it, it may be worthwhile, if it isn't already there already, to put bollards, the ability to put temporary movable bollards along some of those corridors so we can open and close as necessary rather than using what is not the most attractive infrastructure and hardscape that we put out there with those barriers. So I think that'd be a de minimis cost and a good benefit.
That project is actually with stormwater, Keith, and not with capital projects. So if you get with Matt Fountain about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's not a problem. In fact, Matt was awesome in opening up his design books for us to relook at the streetscape project to make it more friendly for pedestrians. And remember, part of that streetscape is also the complete redo of the signal at East Bay and Market as well, which will have some pedestrian enhancements as well. That northwest corner is one of the tightest corners in the city. And so just, yes, I will speak with him about that.
Thanks. It's been a long time in coming for that project.
Wow.
Wow is right.
I don't want to tell you this, but it's true. This project was contemplated when I worked for Mayor Riley in the 90s.
Well, I think one of the first things I did as an elected official and city councilman is go down underneath when they first started that tunneling. And that was 10, 11 years ago. So, I mean, it's really taken a long time, but it'll be good when it's done. So Keith and Mayor, do we need to let the brick and mortar team know that we're going to still continue a lease of times to close down so we don't get some more negative feedback from them? Because I recall before we did this to the Bike and Ped Committee, we had Meg Thompson go talk to everybody to make sure there was peace in the valley, and probably a good idea to keep it that way.
Yeah, like I said, that was off the top of my head. We need to have some communication, just make sure that makes sense for everybody.
All right, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you.
And just these are quick shot ones, and then I take whatever questions or other issues y'all have. We do need to bring before you. I think it comes to full council renomination of some of our Bike Ped Committee members whose terms have run out. There's also 2 vacancies on there, one for a neighborhood advocate and also for somebody who represents communities with special needs. And so we'd love to have those communities represented. We have an amazing Gervais, for example, who represents one of our neighborhoods, who's been awesome on the committee. So we'd love to have both of those 2 slots filled. So if you all have recommendations, please let me know, and we'll put that on the docket of what we put forward. We want to make sure you also know that our parking division, remember at the end of 2019, the county shifted all dispatch responsibilities for parking back to the city. And so we had to coordinate to figure out how we would house those individuals. And thanks to the extreme help of real estate, IT, and also park facilities, park department and their facilities, we have a new space for our entire parking enforcement division, including dispatch, still at 2 George, still getting everything set up and everything built out, but just really grateful for those departments helping us move that forward and get those dispatch staff, city staff, from the county's facilities into city's facilities. And then just finally, just a reminder, we have our monthly maintenance schedule with our traffic operations team. We're currently on the peninsula for this month. We'll be in West Ashley in the month of February. And just as a reminder, so you know, when work orders are coming in of what our year schedule is for Daniel Island, we'll be there both in November and July. will be currently downtown right now, but we'll be back downtown in March. Johnson James Island, both in December and August. April is our flex month, so that gives us our ability to get anywhere we need to get in the city and be able to handle those responsibilities. And then West Ashley again in February, and then the next time will be in May. So just a reminder that we're trying to make sure we stay on top of our work orders, getting those things out, not get behind in that, and just make sure we're as responsive as possible. Any questions, issues, concerns, things that we're not covering?
Councilmember Del Chapo.
I want to go back to South Market for a moment. So it has reopened and we'll close it back down, correct? Is that what we're thinking we're going to do?
I need to go back and talk with BNS. I need to talk with, and otherwise, I'll admit that some of the responses I've gotten from BNS and from some of the businesses, including the market vendors, was their request to reopen the street. And so I need to go back to Meg and find out what's going on. And otherwise, we were following our reopening of the street was following the directive of hearing back from the businesses that they needed to have their space back. But happy to adjust however we need to adjust.
Okay. I just want to make sure that French Quarter is communicated with at the same time as everybody else.
Understood. Yeah, we've been working in terms of the local.
Just drawing me into those conversations, just so I can make sure that everybody's got the same piece of information at the same time.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
You're forgetting the market runs right through the middle of the southern end of District 1. It's like sort of that area, non-area. I did say they've cleared out all the barriers and everything. I mean, it's just open now. So let's see what we can do. All right, any questions for Mr. Benjamin about what he's presented or anything you'd like to see on our agendas in the near or distant future, or you got something else? Let's see your hands.
The only thing left on Fairchild, Councilmember Del Chavo, is the markets. We didn't want them to just put out paint. We want them to go ahead and do the thermal. So they're just waiting for the temperature to improve in order to do the thermoplastic paint. And then we're talking about opening up that intersection. So did speak to the PIO office about coordination, Mayor, with you, Councilmember, and however you all want to handle that in terms of the opening of the intersection and letting the community know. But happy to adjust this as needed. But that's kind of the final piece for that intersection building.
Good.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Benjamin? A couple of things, Keith, just as we go on for the future, maybe for the next meeting, probably time for another update on Ashley River Crossing Bridge as we get into 2021. And also maybe an update. I'm hoping in 2 weeks you'll have one, or someone will have one on the corner of Broad and Lockwood, the repaving and lifting of the road and all that. I've heard a few different variations on what might happen there.
Yeah, I would have to, it's better for Matt to be the one to be the front facing on that improvement, because he's the one who's been negotiating that and can give those baselines for what exactly that looks like. And Ashley River Crossing, if you have not been invited to it, let me know. But I think the vast majority of you have been. Federal Highway Administration was doing a briefing on the Ashley River Crossing for the council members internally with city staff to make sure that that was going through, so I can double check. But I had asked Capital Projects to make sure that they had included folk, but I can.
When is that? Because I don't remember seeing anything about it. Well, you can just send me
What was the
something.
question?
Oh,
The Federal Highway briefing on the bridge.
Our next big deadline is September of this year. Is that what you mean?
no,
I think Mr. Benjamin said there's going to be a briefing done by the highway people on that project.
I'll bring up I'll find the email correspondence and get it out as need be.
It doesn't mean I didn't get it. I just don't remember seeing it. So thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Brady, I see your hand.
Yep, I just had one thing, and Keith, I was hoping you might be able to confirm. I had heard that Stormwater had given the sign off on the Northern Pitchfork. Is that correct? Because that was kind of the last hurdle for that project from the county side.
I did not get the briefing from that, but that was the last piece that needed to be handled. So if they have given that sign off, that'll be encouraging. We, on our side, in terms of our review, TRC review from a transportation standpoint, have been in line and coordinated with the county to get all of our pieces together. We also, especially because of the work at Maybank and River, have also been in coordination with them because all the signaling that will occur, even though they'll be doing it, we'll have to maintain and operate it. So we've maintained those coordinations there. So definitely sure of that. We do have, if you remember, we have our kind of every other month, we county staff, city staff, and SCDOT staff meet just to talk about any and all issues. That's one of the topics we'll be talking about on February 3rd. We're meeting there. So, but I'll verify as soon as the meeting's out.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Mr. Benjamin or for the common good? If not, we're just about an hour in. Thank you all for participating. We will see you at 4:30-ish.
Great.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you all very much. We're adjourned.
Bye.